have I ever been able to prove it out of shooting? No, I've not.
Stop. And he's absolutely just debunked his own argument there miserably.
Hey everybody, welcome to Flatzoids Perspective channel. Today we got a special one for you. We are joined with a collaboration of Michael Khan. Hey Michael, how are you doing, Khan sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Oh, great, thanks. It was really awesome when you decided to contact me to do a collaboration video. I think we're both going to enjoy this Coriolis topic. Is there any specific reason why you chose this video and topic to collaborate with?
This video, I brought it up to you a couple of days ago. It's an old video that I watched before I'd even had like a YouTube channel that I uploaded content to. And I didn't really understand Coriolis like I do now. And obviously we'd spoke about it, and then I managed to find it, and as I've watched it back, it's a disaster. So I thought, seeing as I'd been speaking to you about it, and I thought, let people see a face to my voice, we could do something and talk about this video. So
awesome. Well, I'm very excited to do some collaborations. I really do. Thank you for doing this. If you guys want to subscribe to Michael Khan, if you have not already, I'll be leaving the description for his YouTube channel down below after the video. So yeah, thank you, Michael. I think we can get to it if you're ready. Do you want to give the background of this video, maybe?
We're probably better off just getting straight into it, but I will just say I think is being trolled by flat earthers in past because he brings up flat earth a lot, and I think it's triggered him and encouraged him to make this video in the first place.
Yeah.
I think better to just listen to it and see.
Okay, because I know I have a few times actually commented to him. I've never ever got a reply from him though, and it was about the Coriolis, so I hope it's not taking me as a troll. But I literally have messaged him.
I've come to notice, when you message these channels and they never reply to you, do they? Which it's worrying.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much channels I've left messages to, and I just never get a reply whatsoever. The only replies I do get though is the guys going there and trying to, how can I say, troll us. But yeah.
Let's go.
And Sam after work. Today I want to touch on a question, comment that we get reasonably frequently for all different reasons, and that's Coriolis. Do it!
Yeah.
In different levels, from people who don't believe that it exists, who people don't believe we're in a sphere of the planet Earth, to people that don't believe that it's causes any issues, to people who wonder how you can possibly deal with it because it causes monstrous issues.
Yeah.
Just a disclaimer, as a flat earther, flat earthers do believe in Coriolis. They don't say it's not real.
Yeah, that's one thing I also actually wanted to pause to say. Actually, we are the ones that bring up the Coriolis. So it's kind of I don't know, a misnomer or something when he would say we don't actually know, we say it doesn't exist. I don't know what kind of flat earthers he talks to, because why would they come and actually talk to him about Coriolis if they don't say it exists?
Well, this is a classic straw man thing, isn't it, that they tend to do, like flat earthers think this, flat earthers think that, when they don't. As I've looked into Coriolis, I've come to understand that there's two versions of it. There's a perverted globe lie version of Coriolis that in actually Coriolis.
That's where we get Globiolis and Coriolis. I mean, that's where we get the anti-flat earthers that fight for Globiolis, because they need it to be a single reference frame, and
Yeah.
they need everything to be Velcro to move together, and that actually goes against what Coriolis is. And then when they want to defend Coriolis, they are throwing away the argument for Globiolis.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which they fighting for, Globiolis or Coriolis. It still is not shown to be observed in reality.
It's been pushed as a globe evidence, but really it's not.
It
It's
can't be observed.
It's more flat Earth evidence, because if like this guy is correcting for drifting bullets, then we'd see it in airplanes, balloons, drones. We'd see it, and we don't.
Yeah, we don't see it at all.
We only have one shot at this guy, okay? A little left. Okay, now factor in the spin. No. God damn it, man. Okay, what direction are we? East, west, north, south, northeast? Factor in everything. We need to know exactly the direction, the spin of the earth, and how to combat it, or else we're gonna miss. There's no spin of the earth. Take the shot, retard. But that would mean Neil deGrasse Tyson is wrong, and you miss every single shot when we do this. If we miss this shot, our location will be blown. We've been here for 4 days shitting in little cans. Tell me the spin of the earth. Okay, down to the left 16 inches. No. They saw us. I missed a shot. I guess it was spinning a little faster than I thought.
So I want to go through that step by step in as much as I can, try and break it down without getting too complicated. First off, for the people who are not clear that we're on a sphere that's rotating in the middle of space, listen, there's what can I say to go with that? My simple conversation is probably twofold. There's lots of obvious things that's easy and apparent for us to.
Pop it again. Just like, yeah, he's obviously been contacted by flat earthers who are telling him that he's not correcting for it, and he's got a belief in this spinning ball flying through a vacuum, and I think he's a bit triggered by it. But it's interesting because, well, just like video play, I'm not going to spoil it.
No, but it's true what you said. They don't really have evidence to present that it is a globe with spinning in space. They're literally just taking their belief of it and saying, well, because I believe so, therefore anybody that goes against it just doesn't really understand.
Yeah.
I think that's
but the believe that they have Coriolis because they're on a spinning ball, but yet then they want to deny evidence of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
when last have you seen, let's say in war, where someone's shooting someone and they literally have to account for Coriolis, or planes seeming to fly backwards, or deviating?
This guy is a long range shooter. Right? He is shooting long range, like 1,000 yards, 2,000 yards. You know what I mean? Where they say Coriolis should be took into account. But imagine if he were in a war and he were a sniper and he was just dropped into an area that he don't know, and he's got to be picking people off and he's hidden.
Yeah,
I was him like taking shots and correcting for Coriolis and other things without getting his position away. Do you know what I mean? It'd be a poor sniper. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, it's not. That's what I say. If you have to ask them, actually, how do you take this into account? They can't even tell you how they take it into account, because they can't. There is no Coriolis to take into account. So, yeah, it's very telling. But let's listen to what he says, because we've just started the video, so it should be interesting.
Observe. There is more complex questions as to how on earth can you not be on a sphere to have different time zones, and right now I can ring up on the other side of the world to someone who's standing in the middle of night at a completely different time zone to me. There's a very logical solution. I can tell you why that exists.
And we can also tell you why that exists. Because time zones exist doesn't mean it's a sphere. You can have time zones on a donut Earth if you wanted to. It wouldn't make a difference. It's just simply based
I mean,
on the sun.
look, time zones. I mean, look at time zones between me and you. About a month ago, you were an hour behind me, and now you're 2 hours in
Yeah.
front.
It's
I
just
mean,
the position of the sun to the season. That's all.
you change
That's
your,
why-
you don't change your clocks in South Africa, but we do. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah, we never change our clocks at all.
it's just another sort of globe.
Yeah, I
way.
mean, that's what I say. They just say it's like this, so therefore it is a globe. Not presenting why it's a globe because of that. Just stating it's a globe because of that. That's it. I don't even think he understands why it would need to be this to
The like built-in beliefs. You know what I mean? It's like you taught from a young age. This is what it is. So then you must believe this, and this. You know what I mean? It's ingrained into you.
And I mean, this is the same problem we had with that dirty garage guy, where he literally just made a argument like, "Oh, the light just stops like a brick wall." No, this is the same issue we have with these kind of things.
My bigger question is why some people feel that it is someone else's responsibility to prove stuff to them. But that's all I'll say on that. I'll move forward. We're on a rotating sphere.
Stop it again.
Yeah.
It's everybody's own responsibility to find out what's true and what's not. You know what I mean, I'm not going to rely on that guy telling me what he thinks Coriolis is and that what he thinks he's doing to correct for it. And I can look into it for myself.
Yeah. And also, that's not what the people do. We literally go to ask and do they correct for it? Because remember, that's they're having a claim of Coriolis. So that means it's their burden of proof. They're supposed to back it up. The problem is they cannot back it up. That's why we ask, because we're looking for that evidence to back up their claim.
Well,
because it's their burden of proof.
Back it up with evidence that in out to do with Coriolis, like they back it up with hurricanes and cyclones and water going down a plug hole. I mean, my watering my plug hole goes whichever way it wants to on any occasion. Do you know what I mean? It changes.
Mm-hmm.
How that's out to do with Coriolis, I don't know.
You can see the mirage. No, that's the target. Must be a mirage. Well, I've done the calculations. 8 inches per mile squared. I wouldn't be able to see him. It's a mirage. I'm not taking the shot. It's him! With every sniper just shoots people. It's a fucking mirage. That means Neil deGrasse Tyson, the bike thief with the answers, is somehow misleading me.
The next level of it would be the logic of that. How can that affect things? If you're standing one place on the earth and you shoot something to another place on the earth, we're all on the same earth, it's all relatively flat, why would it make a difference? And to that I'd say there is
if we live on a sphere, there's no relative flat. A sphere curves away from your point that you stood in all directions. There's no locally flat on a sphere.
And that's another contradiction they have, though, because they say the Earth is too big to be able to see the curve, but yet it's small enough to see the curve. You can see birds go over the curve at 3 miles away.
I mean, that dimensions that they tell us Earth is don't seem big to me.
No. And I mean, the black swan totally demolished their geometric radius. So it doesn't exist because of the black swan. It shows that their set geometry is
simple as
no.
that.
So if their argument is we have a geometric horizon, which is the Earth curve, which blocks boats and buildings and whatever at a certain distance. If you can just show once that it goes beyond that limitation of geometry, hence the black swan, then it debunks that claim. That's why it's called the black swan, because the whole argument is white swans are everywhere. But if I can prove there's one black swan, it demolishes that only white swans exist, and that's hence the black swan argument.
It's like saying all pieces of string are a foot long, and then you produce one that's 2 foot long. Then not all pieces of string are a foot long.
It's just logical deduction.
There's simple mathematics that's involved with this. In a very simple way of breaking it down, the understanding that if you come to any section or if you put it into 2D and understand the principle that in a rotating circle, rotating at 1 revolution per unit, at any given height from that circle, you're going to create a different speed of action.
Yeah, different tangential velocity.
Yeah. Notice that it calls it a rotating circle. And look at like people who say, "Oh, we're not on a rotating roundabout."
Yep, but that's why I say, if let's say you're on the equator close to me, and I'm supposed to be theoretically on the globe, if I'm just go on a hot air balloon, for instance, and I travel north onwards to you, the ground is supposed to be moving underneath me, and I'm not supposed to be following that straight path. To me, I look like I'm going straight, but to you underneath, it's going to look like I'm making a curved deviation. And the reason for that also that's going to go faster and faster is because the circumference of that latitude gets smaller and smaller as well. So the speed is supposed to change as well. We do not see this. So that's why if they shoot long distances with a rifle, it's supposed to be accounted according to their globe. I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson even said with the field goal, the Earth was deflected 1 inch to the right, and that's what won the game.
And had a magic paper airplane that could travel hundreds of miles. If you threw your airplane directly northward, you might think it would land straight north. The paper airplane in a straight line toward the north, it would land somewhere to the right of Nebraska.
It's showing like he has some understanding by describing it as a rotating circle or platform, but then he seems to like drift off into math world. You know what I mean? Like if you look into Coriolis, it's like an optical illusion. Things seem like they're drifting, but they're not.
Yeah, it's not actually. It's just an optical.
How can you be adding mathematics to an optical illusion?
No, because mathematics just describes that. We've shown in the past where mathematics does not mean it's reality just because you use it to describe. It's the same as saying, me and you, we go and buy one ice cream by the shop, but you also want the ice cream now. So in mathematical terms, I can just go and plus an ice cream. So now we have 2. But in reality, we still only have 1 ice cream.
Yeah.
But in maths, it's going to say we have 2. In maths, it would be proven to be true, but in reality, it's not proven to be true because we only had 1 ice cream.
It's like one guy imagines there's a tree at 10 foot away, and he says, I can measure that tree at 10 foot away. And the guy stood next to him was like, what tree?
Yeah.
How can I be measuring to a tree that's not there? It's that sort of logic.
Yeah, exactly.
Movement, this speed versus this speed, if they are spinning at 1 unit, 1 rotation per 24 hours, you're going to get a different speed at different heights. If you understand that in principle, and then both from something traveling up in an arc and back down again with a varying speed across its arc, you're going to end up with a different point of recontacting it.
So here he's actually explaining the Coriolis
Yeah.
because the ground is moving underneath you and
he's
you and the ground.
claiming Earth's turning underneath his bullet. That's what he's
Exactly.
claiming there.
This is why we say the anti-flat earthers fight for Globiolis, because they claim it moves with him. The Earth doesn't move underneath freely.
Yeah,
So-
they claim atmosphere moves in lockstep, which is easily debunked. Just go out and look at clouds.
hmm
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see clouds going in different directions. That
I mean, even on Coriolis, the higher you go with altitude, the further you're away from the moving ground. So therefore, even based on their moving atmosphere, then your tangential speed has to increase with altitude. We don't see this. I mean, that's why we see with high altitude balloons like Mr. Sensible's Mage, the balloon after those 3-4 hours never deviated at all. It literally stayed where it was. That debunks the Coriolis.
Yeah.
Because you would observe that deviation.
its original circumference. And you've also got the fact that on a rotating sphere, that means that this part of it is traveling at a different speed than the poles are traveling at a different speed to the equator. You put all that in and you find that mathematically it's quite simple to see that there's going to be a different exit and re-entry in the way of how things change from one sphere to another sphere, and it's not about the complexities of the fact that it's the...
So it's claiming an exit and an entry. So it's claiming an exit from the rotating platform into a different.
Yeah, remember there's two.
Into a different reference frame, and then
the non-inertial reference frame and the inertial reference frame.
So people who defend Globe Earth, who claim Coriolis, claim one reference frame.
Yeah, Coriolis.
Two.
Yeah, Coriolis reference. Coriolis sits on hinging of having two reference frames. The non-inertial reference frame would be the spinning Earth with you, and the inertial reference frame would be, in this case, the bullet, where you are observing it to seem to deviate.
Yeah,
because the ground is underneath.
Like globe believers, globe defenders, anti-flat earthers, whatever you want to call them, they claim one reference frame because air's rotating with Earth. That guy's claiming Coriolis is a long-distance shooter. He's claiming two reference frames because he says bullets exiting and re-entering. So that's leaving ground. Your gun that's attached to ground by the guy who's holding it, leaving that gun. It's no longer in that reference frame. That's what he's claiming. But globe defenders go against that claim.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right.
Globe rotating in the middle of space that's causing the problem. It's simple mathematics of around a rotating sphere. So the next level of it, which I'd go into, is
Just pause it again one moment. One minute. It's claiming maths again. You can go and watch all his videos on his channel, right? He's not sat there with a piece of paper and a calculator doing maths.
He's literally just got his wife doing the spotting with the curve. And as far as I know, that curve just takes windage into account, pitch, distance. It doesn't take anything with Coriolis into account.
What is a spotter doing? A spotter's spotting with bullets hitting ground near to target, and then telling him to adjust left, right, up, down. That's all.
He's just literally that micrometer on his scope. He's literally just clicking it.
Yeah.
They're saying left to right to up. Let's say it goes too low. Then that spotter has to say, okay, 2 clicks to up, and he knows, okay, he has to do 2 clicks to get it up, and to the left, to the right, and that's about it.
I mean, how many things could you? It's like you've got your windage, you've got your elevation. There's obviously going to be at long distance some drift at bullet because it's barrels of rifled and bullets spinning. So and then to add earth turn to it as well. It's like they never hit a target. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll never hit the target with that. I mean, how do the guys do any group shots if you had to account for Coriolis every time? You're not going to get a group shot at all.
which people, well, I suppose there's a couple of different directions I go with. One is the randomness of it, that it's going to keep affecting things. No, that's not the case. This is a complete constant. It is a constant thing that happens all the time. It is mathematical, and it means that once it's always going to affect the bullet in exactly the same way. Or anything, whatever it is, in exactly the same way.
That I have to stop. That's false, because like I just said, at different latitudes you're going to have different rates, and also with the different wind that's applicable, it's going to give a difference. With the different pitch he's shooting at, the difference. The elevation, the difference. So it's not going to be exactly the same as he's saying. It would change all the time.
Every time you went out with that rifle would be an absolute nightmare trying to work it out, because everything's changing every time. You know, wind's changing, your position's changing, and then to be trying to work out how much you're going to have to adjust for how much Earth's rotating underneath at that distance. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Always going to do precisely the same thing. So once you've actually, if you're shooting in a particular direction, once you've adjusted for it, it's going to do the same thing. It doesn't keep adjusting. It's not random. It's not weird in the way it does things. Once you've adjusted for it, it becomes a straight line again. There's nothing involved. It just goes.
Now I understand what I'm saying. It's like, so if you've adjusted for it already, which I've yet to see them adjust for it, by the way.
Yeah.
If you carry on, if you just keep it in that position and just shoot, it would just stay going there. That sounds kind of sort of counterintuitive if you think about it, because if you set it, and okay, obviously the how can I put it, the sign is shooting the object.
It's basically saying that, like, say his target's at 2,000 yards, and he's corrected for 2,000 yards, then for that bullet to go past, there won't have to be any more correction. That's what he's saying, isn't it?
But that's what I'm saying, why it's actually false. If you go and watch long-range shooting, there's no ways that they ever shoot on exactly the same. Even if you don't even move anything, hasn't changed anything, and they press that trigger again, it does not hit on exactly that same spot. Never.
No.
So that's a bit of a tall tale, actually.
As to exactly where you're talking about. The other bit that I wanted to say with this side of things is and the more simple way to look at this, if you take maths out of the equation, if you take what actually happens out of the equation, if you want to go into is it to do with gravity or to all those things.
Stop it again. It keeps saying maths and bringing maths into equation, taking maths out of equation. How can you have maths for an optical illusion?
Again, maths is just a description based.
Yeah, I mean,
I wonder this magical math that he's talking about there. Do you think he's going to actually present this magical math that just makes everything so simple?
So it just appears it's curving, right? It's still going straight. So what maths is he? It'd miss. Do you know what I mean? If it's going straight and he's adding maths to correct for something that's not there, he's going to miss his target every time.
Yeah, because he's creating something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
If you want to take all that out of the equation, there's a far simpler way to look at it from my way of looking at things. Is that
stop it again?
This was
Sorry. There is a simple way to look at it. You just shoot straight.
Yeah.
This was not come up with we have this maths problems to solve as to how to do this to be able to shoot a long way. This was come up with, Coriolis was something that came into our world in a different fashion. This actually came about, from my reading and my understanding of it, this came about when it got to the point in the military when artillery was able to fire pretty much past where they could see.
That I have to also stop, because like I said, with Neil deGrasse Tyson, he brought up with the field goal on a, I mean, that's not even a far distance. The guy kicked the field goal on a football field, and the earth rotated to give a 1-inch deflection to the right, which gave him the winning field goal. So you would definitely see on long range shooting this deflection, just because now they have to say, okay, now it came with artillery that's much
What-
further away.
What he's just said there is a perverted twist on it, because I would imagine when they first started shooting long range, what they started noticing were things looked like they were curving off path, and they weren't. He's just twisted that into thinking that they were missing the target and they realised something were causing them to miss. But I don't think that was the case. I think it just looked like they were missing the target.
Yeah,
that's
because
where-
usually, because I think it's that happens when it goes out of view. So how do you know when it's out of view, it's going to be deviating? Coriolis is an observed effect, so you have to actually see it deviate. Just saying, okay, it missed, so therefore now it's Coriolis. You haven't observed it deflecting; you just missed. Does not make it Coriolis. You have to observe it because it's an
But
apparent.
even if you were watching that projectile and watching it curve, it's still going straight. So if you're correct for that, you're going to miss.
Yeah.
So they were shooting beyond the horizon. So they weren't shooting little shots like 3 miles or 5 miles or 6 miles or 8 miles. It was starting to move into where they're shooting in the 10 miles, in the 15 miles, in the 20 miles, and the 25-mile shots. So they'd got to the point where they had done a huge amount of development in the artillery side of things, when they were able to fire things out barrels. Not talking about missiles, different conversation. This is talking about artillery. This is talking about.
But why would missiles not be taken into account either? The same effect should happen with missiles, though. Although missiles also have line of sight, some of them. And
The missiles are powered though, aren't they? They followed like GPS or something like that.
yeah, but I mean, it's separate from Earth's location, so it should be able to pick up.
Whatever the onboard direction, whatever's controlling direction, a missile might have to account for it if it were real. But
Yeah, and do missiles actually account for this? The ground moving underneath the 3D? No,
I don't think anything accounts for it because the ground ain't moving.
exactly.
Something that would fire something out of barrels. So basically a giant rifle. Rifling, great big long barrel, gunpowder, firing a projectile. So whether it was explosive or not, but it was not directed, it was something that was able to fire out the end. And then to get it to go to a certain place, it needed spin stabilization, it needed to be aimed properly, it needed to be able to, they were onto understanding about spin drift, they were onto understanding
Spin drift. It's called a Magnus effect.
Yeah.
It's just called the Magnus effect. So the guy can't even give the terms right. So it shows you he's trying to make an excuse for Coriolis, but he doesn't actually know what Coriolis maybe is.
He's being a ball apologist, isn't he? Basically.
Probably.
about how wind affects projectiles. They were onto all these things and working it out properly.
Wind affects projectiles changes all the time. That's why you work out for windage, because it changes at a different.
Yeah.
It even changes at a different lengths. The wind, let's say 100 meters away from you, is different to 300 meters away from you. It changes. More wind. Sometimes the wind is even the opposite direction at a further distance away from you. That's why you hit it. Sometimes you don't.
And I mean, if you're taking lots of shots, if you've accounted for, I don't know, say 20-mile-an-hour crosswind, but 30 seconds later that wind's dropped and you shoot, you're gonna miss.
Mm-hmm. If you haven't accounted, it's part of the game.
They had got to a stage where they were able to aim very precisely and it kept going to the wrong place. At that stage, they had brought into the fact that, wait a minute, there's a piece of physics or a piece of...
Just stop it again. I don't see how if you've corrected for everything, how you're still going to miss, because there's no evidence that Earth's rotating whatsoever.
mass that we're not bringing into this equation, and then by bringing that mass into the equation, they could get to where they could aim 20 miles away and be, obviously we're talking artillery and explosives, so we're talking something that is trying to blow up 100 square meters, so they're not trying to pinpoint it down to the square into an MOA group. They are trying to come down, well I suppose they are going with MOA group, but they're not trying to hit something smaller than a house, but they are still trying to get to that place, and that's where the maths comes from. Now how accurately, I don't know.
Did they get feeling that he's just trying to defend his own belief?
He's kind of contradicting himself. He's saying one thing and then he says, no, but then it says this, and then he says something else again.
I mean, if he spent any time looking into Coriolis, he'd find that it's a pseudo force, it's an effect, it's an optical illusion. You can't be doing maths for an optical illusion. You can't be correcting for an optical illusion. You're gonna miss.
Yeah, but also what I think he's trying to do is literally, it's almost like he's trying to make excuses. It only really happens if you're shooting larger objects that are further away. Like that's going to make a difference. It doesn't matter if you're trying to shoot a penny 5 kilometers away or a penny a kilometer away. If the Earth moves underneath you, it moves underneath you, full stop. Doesn't matter the size of the object you're shooting.
It's Earth's moving in heliocentrism. Earth's rotating, so it's rotating under that's not attached to it.
Yeah.
And ballers like to say that atmosphere's rotating with Earth. That's why you don't see it, but that's not the case. Reason we don't see it is Earth's not rotating.
Yep.
Research on what they actually got to, but that's where it comes from, extremely long range shooting. I touched on the fact they're not missiles, and one of the things that some of the conversations I've seen is people talking in the military where they would fire off missiles and they would just give it the coordinates, they'd go there, so that proves that Coriolis doesn't exist. No, a missile's nothing to do with this. If you have something that is directing itself to a
False. A missile has nothing to do with it. A missile has everything to do with it. It's left the reference frame. Even if it's correcting itself to go, that means it's correcting for Coriolis then, because the ground would be literally moving underneath it. So it would have to physically correct for it.
Yeah, it's got a lack of understanding there.
It would literally, I mean, how do I put it this way? Let's say you are on a moving platform and you have a red dot or something you have to jump onto. Now, when you've jumped to jump on that, the floor has moved away. You've got to know where you got to jump to get onto that platform to land on that red dot.
Yeah.
It's the same with the so-called missile, as he says. It's got to know the ground is moving to correct to land on that spot, because the ground is physically moving.
A coordinate where it'll change its flight as it travels. That is a completely different creature. It does have a GPS, a set of coordinates to go to, so it'll direct itself.
Yeah, and it directs itself without Coriolis.
But if it's got GPS coordinates for a position that's in a straight line path away from it, it's according to Coriolis, it's still going to have that effect. It's still going to have that optical illusion that it's drifting or curving or whatever.
We would be able to observe that Coriolis effect because it's literally just an effect observed for someone on the non-inertial reference frame. So if you're on a battleship and you shoot the missile out, you're supposed to see that, let's say the missile shot straight up, you're supposed to see it take a apparent deviation path. And the people don't see this because it doesn't happen.
Well, they claim that it happens with rockets, don't they?
Yeah, they do claim this. Oh, sorry, I clicked.
Which is just the largest missile.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Spin stabilization, it needed to be aimed properly. It brought into the fact that, wait a minute, there's a piece of physics or a piece of mass that we're not bringing into this equation. And then by bringing that mass into the equation, they could get to where they could aim 20 miles away and be, obviously we're talking artillery and explosives, so we're talking something that is trying to blow up, where it comes from extremely long range shooting. I touched on the fact they're not missiles, and one of the things that some of the conversations I've seen is people talking in the military where they would fire off missiles and they would just give it the coordinates, they'd go there, so that proves that Coriolis doesn't exist. No, a missile.
Every time he keeps saying people, he's obviously referring to flat earthers, isn't he?
Yeah, probably. Because I mean, there's so much people that's in the Navy and in that do artillery and stuff, and you actually ask them about this, and when they were in service, they tell you they've never thought about Coriolis at all.
Yeah.
They're not even taught about the Coriolis, because when you get taught, you just taught, there's the object, this is what you got to account for, which you have to take into account. It's a stationary plane. That's all the document says. It's a stationary plane. They don't take it as a moving plane.
Nothing to do with this. If you have something that is directing itself to a coordinate where it'll change its flight as it travels, that is a completely different creature. It does have a GPS, a set of coordinates to go to, so it'll direct itself. We are 100% talking about something that has no direction from other than where the barrel's pointing. So, all that being said, largely you can ignore Coriolis. Yes, I believe it does exist. Have I ever been able to prove it out of shooting? No, I've not.
Stop. And he's absolutely just debunked his own argument there miserably.
How can you keep...
And he's also just declared that it's a belief. He don't actually know. He can't prove it, so he can't be doing maths for it. He can't be correcting for it.
I don't know how he just literally said, I believe it exists. Can I prove it? No.
It's like,
do I account for it? No. But he wants to fight for it, but he doesn't account for it.
Yeah. He's shown that he's got a belief in a spinning ball, so therefore he's got a belief that he's correcting for Coriolis.
Wow, that's the death of his whole. I wonder if he's actually kicked himself off. Hopefully, he would actually watch this and he would have a response to this video. We're going to obviously send him the link to this.
How did he recover from him?
Yeah, we're obviously going to send him the link to this video, so we'll see if he'll be one of the first guys that.
If he says, like he's just stated earlier on in video, right? If he's doing the maths and correcting for the maths and that, then how can he turn around in next breath and say he can't prove it? Obviously, because he's not really doing maths. He don't correct for it. You know.
Yeah, what maths has he done then to say? So he's just trying to push the evidence out and say, oh, the clever people are doing the math. I don't need to, even though I'm shooting long distance. And at the same distance saying, I don't shoot far enough for it to happen. No, a moving platform is a moving platform. Think about it this. If you're on the equator, according to the globe, if you take the rim velocity, it's about 480 meters a second. A second. When they're shooting that far distances, the bullet's in the air, 3-4 seconds? That's a large distance of movement across the ground. You would notice that, for sure.
I use it, and I try and use it and I'll go into that in a little bit of detail in a second. But the truth is that conditions, be it basically air is the largest thing we're dealing with, has a lot more control over your bullet than you realize.
Sorry, I reset it again. Yes, air has a lot more over the bullet than you realize, because that's what they account for, windage, not Coriolis.
Windage.
And this is why it goes against Coriolis as well, because they say the atmosphere moves with you.
And if you claimed a lockstep atmosphere, you'd only have windage in one direction, wouldn't you? You won't have, you won't have windage going anti-rotation.
Yeah, at different speeds, at different distances away from the shooter.
All that being said, largely you can ignore Coriolis. Yes, I believe it does exist. Have I ever been able to prove it out of shooting? No, I've not. I use it, and I try and use it and I'll go into that little bit of detail in a second. But the truth is that conditions, be it basically air is the largest thing we're dealing with, has a lot more control over your bullet than you realise. Or maybe than you realise, but a lot more control over the bullet. It has a lot bigger chance of moving the bullet. The stuff you can't read in the air, there's a lot bigger chance of moving the bullet to the left or the right, or high or low, than Coriolis has in the way.
The Coriolis doesn't do anything. It's an optical effect. The bullet where you shoot is where it goes. The ground underneath it is the physical movement. So it moves the ground and it moves the target away physically. So that would have more of an effect than the wind blowing it a little bit of a deflection, because it's literally moving away at 480 meters a second at the equator. So if you're shooting northwards, at every latitude you're going north or south, it's changing that tangential speed, as he put it in the beginning of the video.
Imagine that. How do you work all these things out there, right? So imagine over a long distance you've got a little bit of drift at right, because that's how your barrel's rifled. But then you've got windage going opposite way, but then you've got, depending where you are on Earth, you could have Earth rotation causing it to be like a diagonal type. You know what I mean? How do you count for all these different vectors?
I don't know.
When all you've got is like a left or a right and an up and down on your rifle.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But like he said, he's just got a belief and he can't actually provide evidence that it does. So this video actually debunks all the Glober's arguments that snipers take Coriolis into account, because he's literally denying that they need to even take it into account.
He's just basically a globe apologist. He's obviously a bit triggered. He's heard people talking about flat Earth. They've been pestering him, and he's just waffled through 10 minutes worth of claiming you're correct for it. You've got maths that you work out for it, and then says, but he can't prove it. It's like he's just totally debunked everything he said.
Yeah, true.
It's Coriolis is going to do it, but it's going to move it by 1 or 2 or 3 MOA at the absolute. Sorry, well, not by MOA. By essentially, you might be dialing in. In Coriolis, the biggest stuff we're generally moving would be as much as 1.5, maybe 2 MOA of actual adjustment.
That's a lot of adjustment, by the way, guys, especially at such a long distance.
Yeah.
Where we will, in the same shot, be dealing with an air pressure change, which we are not able to read, can move it by more than that.
You see, there's so much variables that can change it.
Air pressure.
Air pressure. So we have containment, guys. But you see, there's so much variables that they're pushing out that could change it, but trying to downplay the effects Coriolis would give. So in other words, I believe it's there, although I can't prove it or pick it up. But it's there, it's just there.
But that's why he totally is absolutely miserably debunked himself, because how can you be correcting for something and not be able to prove it? that's double speaking, 100%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's absolutely ridiculous.
So I hope people are actually going to watch this video so they can see that snipers do not account for this, because it's not there. Even the long range, the shooters are literally downplaying it because they say they cannot even take it into account. So when someone says, yes, but the military have it in there for the snipers to take into account, then they should come and talk to this guy.
100%.
Who's done this for years, by the way. He's been doing this for years, shooting. So I think by now he would know if he has to take account for Coriolis or not. And out of his own words, he says he does not take it into account, but he just believes it has to be there because he believes it.
And we're back full circle again. Everything about globe Earth is a belief.
It's faith-based. The whole globe is faith-based. We've been saying this for years. There's no evidence for the things they present, unfortunately. And
I think I said it at the beginning. He believes Earth's a spinning ball, so he believes he accounts for Coriolis.
Yeah.
But he can't prove it.
One of the things that people don't understand about wind, if you shoot just long range, then wind at 6 o'clock or wind at 12 o'clock doesn't make that much difference, because your bullets, if it has to travel a little bit further, a little bit, essentially if it's fighting 20 miles an hour wind coming into it, that's only going to drop the shot by, at 900 yards, that's only going to drop the shot by less than half MOA.
Yeah, remember, a bullet is very aerodynamic. There's not a lot of surface for the wind to actually make a difference on it. So obviously if it's coming in and that, it's not. But where the surface area is, the side of the bullets. So when it comes to the side, it's going to push it. When it comes to that, and it's got to compete with the Magnus effect as it's spinning away.
That's what I mean. Just through spin at bullet and wind, you've got two different things to account for there, haven't you? And then to throw in something else as well, it just makes it, to me, it makes it impossible, especially in a sniper situation where there's no time. It's literally, you've got to take your shot. I don't see how they're hitting the targets. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because the bullet is coming in fairly flat. When you go ELR and the bullet is coming in like this, and it's been dealing with 20 miles an hour of wind, all of a sudden that shot is potentially going to drop 2 to 3 to 4 meters short. Mm-hmm. So wind, just the wind direction, especially, and the high level wind can change a shot monstrously. Obviously left and right, 30 MOA, 20 MOA, 30 MOA, 40 MOA, quite likely if you're dealing with winds that are moving left or right.
And that's a lot, guys. That is a lot. So why would they have to then bother about Coriolis then? Oh wait, it doesn't exist.
From your 3 o'clock or your 9 o'clock, where your dialing for Coriolis was 1.9, 1.5 MOA left and right. How can you tell the difference when you can't see the wind? So what I'd say, the way I use it, well, there's two things that I'm trying to say there. One is, to fuss about it is only relevant for your first shot. Once you've seen an impact, then you're adjusting to your impact.
Yeah, so you're not taking...
Like we say all the time, you'd also see it in airplanes, in balloons, in drones, hovering drones, and we don't see it.
No, we don't see it at all.
So you adjust to your wind. If you can see your wind, then you're going to go to the wind as well as where your impact was. But largely in ELR, you're adjusting to your impact. If you and you'll see changes you can't explain. None of them are going to be anything changing in Coriolis or spindrift. Those two things are going to stay very much the same. They're consistent things. So you adjust to your impacts. With the likes of where I do use Coriolis and I.
No, he does use Coriolis. I thought he said he doesn't.
I do use an optical effect.
Yeah. This is the same with Wolfie saying, remember guys, he's a pilot. He says he accounts for Coriolis in a plane. How? He just literally says he doesn't do it. Now all of a sudden he's making a double talk like he is. This is one thing I see a lot of the Globers. They're always contradicting what they're saying and double backing down on what they said and contradicting. Yeah, it's literally contradiction.
But you see, they're just like we were years ago. They're deceived by a false version of Coriolis.
Yeah.
They think it can happen with just one reference frame, and it can't.
Yeah. And it can't. It requires two. Otherwise, it's just globulus, guys.
Try and factor it in is in twofold. In trying to get a one-shot hit or trying to get as close as I can straight away, then I try and factor it in. Doesn't make a difference. To be truthful, it's more luck involved in ELR. There's more luck that I read that wind right. It's more luck that the conditions were as I presumed them to be through that shot.
Yeah, predicting the wind is not Coriolis. Why is he talking about wind and he said he's correcting for Coriolis? It's two different subjects.
He ain't correcting for Coriolis. It can only be correcting for wind because there's only a windage adjustment on your scope.
Yeah.
There's elevation and windage. Do you know what I mean? There's no Coriolis knob.
Wow.
You're generally going through 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different wind streams, and you're trying to make an average of those wind streams. So as for the Coriolis side of things, I still try and factor it in. I still try and make sure my spin drift is accurate as possible, all that sort of stuff.
How? What Coriolis are you? Has he even told us yet how he's factoring Coriolis in? That he literally said in the beginning he can't factor in. Where? Has he explained how it's factoring it in? I think we're going to have to leave him a message on his. Well, we're going to, obviously, because you're going to send him the link of the video, but to ask him, what did he do to factor in Coriolis?
It'd be brilliant if he'd be willing to come and talk.
Yeah, actually, it would be great.
That'd be good, right?
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Well, we'll invite him and we'll see what happens.
So
Like I said,
I'd like to know whether he's actually looked into Coriolis and what it actually is, because it doesn't sound like he knows what it is.
No, it doesn't sound like he really knows what it is. It's like, because it's like a category error. He's literally taking the wind and he's trying to categorize wind with Coriolis effect.
This is what I've got to deal with.
Keeps it exciting.
It's really more about those conditions. The other place, and the place that I mainly use it, is in trying to factor in the data. If I was shooting east-west, or if I was shooting west-east, or wherever I was shooting, once I get that data, which is how I try and get my first shots, how I try and get so close all the time, is recording my data all the time.
Yes, it's called dope. You guys don't know what dope is? You shouldn't be talking anything about long-range shooting.
Is that 1 or 2 MOA involved in that shot? I look at what it actually took at the end of the day, and the average shots I was taking, and try and make sense of what all those conditions tell me, and then I try and factor that.
Sorry.
Okay. No, don't stress. Okay, you ready? Let's try again.
So I put my raw data down the bottom of my sheet, so I'm looking at my raw data. That's where I'm factoring it in. Does it really mean anything? And can I prove anything? No, I can't.
You would be able to prove it if you're factoring it in, because you're literally writing it in your data.
It's all well and good for him to be talking about this data in right where he's got as much time it will to hit his target. You know what I mean? But imagine a sniper in a sniper situation in a war. Where's he got time to be going through data?
He doesn't. Do
you know what I mean? He's literally got to get his gun out and take a shot.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, he's literally saying he's taking the dope and he's using that data to correct for Coriolis. So, and then he says, can he prove it? Then how is he putting it in his dope? You literally have to write it down in your dope to have it there. It's your data. So you would be able to prove it and provide it with your mathematical deductions in your dope. Then he hasn't calculated for anything. He hasn't even written it down.
I've not seen conditions which I could shoot in any particular direction that I could guarantee the wind was doing something. Now maybe in the middle of a big flat desert with exactly the same wind, I could go out and prove it. I've never seen those conditions. I don't have that big flat desert close to me. And even the flatter stuff I have had, the conditions change from one moment to the next. There'll be subtle changes in the shot I've got in front of me that I'm trying to read. So to spin around and shoot the other direction, I'm not going to be able to prove it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I don't know if you've seen a video a while back from a guy. That's what he was trying to do. He took a sand heap down that side and took a sand heap in the back, and he took his rifle. He pointed and he shot. He turned around, tried to point it and shot, and he said, "Look, this side was higher, that side is so lower. Therefore, Coriolis."
No.
No. He literally moved from one side to the other. How do you know it's set exactly the same as it was there? How do you know? Everything changes. The wind changes.
No, because the only Coriolis is it would be him if he could see the bullet drifting.
It would
Yeah, I
deviate.
mean-
That's
It's not
So, yeah.
really. It's not really. So it won't be higher at one side and lower at other, because that's not what Coriolis is.
Nope. But hey, these are the issues the Globe guys have when they're trying to defend their belief in Coriolis.
I do believe it exists, but I do believe it there, the maths of it. But I'll come back to, is it worth bothering? Even in my 5K shot, is it worth worrying about?
Hey, guys.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Like I said, record the data, but to worry about it, to think it's going to make you miss your shot, all that sort of stuff, no, you know.
5K. How much deviation should you see in 5Ks? I mean, how much seconds of flight is that bullet going through? Quite a lot.
That were an helicopter drifting from somewhere else.
I've never seen helicopters and planes drift here at all. And I mean, I literally live like 500 meters away from an airfield here. So
They work on power lines using helicopters. You know what I mean? And they just sat hovering for ages doing work on power lines.
and they don't move separate to it, nothing. Yeah,
No.
it's true. I mean, when they take hot air balloons here to look at the nature and stuff, they literally know where they're going. If they're keeping it hovering in one place, it stays hovering in one place. Unless a large gust of wind comes and it moves them across. But do they see Earth rotating underneath? Nope.
How
I never
would
saw
you actually control an hot air balloon with Earth moving underneath it? How would you control it?
I think it'd be quite difficult.
You just,
Especially if you have to keep up tangentially with that speed. I mean, wow.
you'd end up in all kinds of places you didn't want to end up in, wouldn't you?
It's like you go up in the balloon, and Beth is staying at home, and you got your friend's like, "I'm just going for a balloon ride. No stress. I'll see you soon." You go up. It's like you phone her later. "Sorry, Beth. We fell asleep, or we had some issues. The ground moved underneath us too fast. I ended up in Hong Kong. See you in about a few days."
Yeah. I'll see when Earth's rotated a bit further around. I'll be back home.
I won't be home for dinner, but I'll see you soon because you just got to wait for the Earth to rotate around again.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
The weather, the conditions are far more relevant. To the flat earthers that don't want to believe the world's going on, like I said, my bigger point, apart from what's obvious out there, is I don't see why it's anyone else's responsibility to point out what's obvious to the rest of us. Anyway,
Okay, how does he say it's obvious to the rest of you if he can't show it? There's no observation for it. He just believes it's there, and he doesn't even have proof that it's there. Just because he believes it there doesn't make it there.
But us people are silly, aren't we?
But like I said in the beginning, it's his burden of proof because he's saying it's there, even though you can't observe it. So it's not on us to prove it not existing. It's him to prove it does exist.
Put it into perspective, right? Globe Earth claims Coriolis, that's Earth turning underneath bullets, planes, blah, 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 right? He's a long-range shooter. He claims Coriolis, but yet he can't prove Coriolis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that says it all to me.
Yeah. Oh, well, I just have to say thank you, Michael, that you brought this video. Hopefully that the people are going to be looking at this with a honest appraisal, because I really do think a lot of people are very dishonest with themselves, especially when it comes to this subject, the Coriolis. They just need to ignore it because, like he says, they have a belief it's there. Even though they got no evidence for it, they cannot prove it to exist. But because they believe it's there, therefore it has to be there. So yeah, thank you again. I really did enjoy this.
Yeah, good. We'll have to do it again with someone else.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely have to do another collaboration. Like I said, guys, I'm going to be putting his channel link in the description box below. So if you guys are interested to subscribe, if you haven't already, please do. And don't forget to hit that like button or dislike button if you're a Glover troll who gets hurt a lot. And just subscribe if you haven't. So yeah, thank you, Michael. Really, really do appreciate it. We do have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, any last words before we close off?
No, just don't take my word for it, or Flatzoids' word for it, or even that long-range shooter guy's word for it. Go and look into Coriolis. There's ample information out there to find out what it really is.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mike, for coming. Thank you, everybody that's here in the stream, obviously watching. Thank you, everybody that's probably supporting the channel financially. Really, really do appreciate you guys all. If you want to see more of these special collaborations, do let us know, and we'll definitely be making a plan for that. So God bless. May the pressure be with you.